Is there reason in your understanding to believe Western press reports that President Trump is getting sick and tired of Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, let's just say there's good reason for him to be getting sick of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Whether he actually is or not, I can't vouch for it, but there is very good reason for the President of the United States to say to the Arab counterparts that he'll be meeting with that the United States is going to pursue a foreign policy of U.S. interests in the Middle East, not of an extremist Israeli government.
What if I told you that so-called most pro-Israel U.S. president in history is now ghosting Bibi Netanyahu and flirting with the very idea that could bring Israel's right-wing government to its knees? A Palestinian state? Sounds insane, right? But according to Professor Jeffrey Sachs, that's exactly the direction Trump might be headed. In a stunning breakdown on Judge's show, Sachs lays it bare. Trump is ignoring Netanyahu, defying the war-hungry neocons, and wait for it, considering a Middle East peace plan that doesn't serve Israel's endless appetite for land grabs and corruption. The Western press whispers that Trump is sick and tired of Bibi, and Sachs says good, because for once, U.S. foreign policy could be driven by American interests, not Netanyahu's delusion. From bypassing Israel to negotiating with Hamas to hinting at recognizing Palestine at the UN. This might just be the most radical realignment in Middle East policy we've seen in decades. And it's not Biden doing it, it's Trump. So buckle up, because Professor Jeffrey Sachs is right. The entire geopolitical script is about to flip.
Delusional approach, and that would lead actually to peace if President Trump says this. We haven't had a president pursue American interests in the Middle East for a very long time. Biden simply did what Netanyahu said. It got America into a deeper and deeper mess. President Trump has the opportunity to extricate the United States from the profound mess that Netanyahu has caused. And that mess specifically is wars all over the Middle East. President Trump likes peace, he likes business, he likes development, and all of that is possible if President Trump says, I'm not following the madness of Israel's extremism. I'm going to pursue a normal approach. That means recognizing the state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel. It means agreeing with the Arab peace initiative of the last 23 years that there can be normalcy, there can be peace, there can be normal relations between the Arab world and Israel, but Israel can't have it all. It can't just keep expanding into other people's territories. It has to live within its borders, and then it can live peacefully and normally with the rest of the Middle East, including the Palestinians, including Saudi Arabia, including the Gulf region, including Egypt. But it has to stop expanding. It has to live within its legal borders.
In the past 3 weeks, the following has happened. Mike Waltz was fired, and the White House leaked that he was fired because he was secretly negotiating, planning, plotting, conniving. I'm using some of their words and I'm paraphrasing, with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The U.S. negotiated directly with Hamas, bypassing the Israelis, and that resulted in the release of a joint U.S. Israeli citizen IDF soldier today. The U.S. provided humanitarian assistance to Gaza, or announced that it will, and the American ambassador to the U.S., an arch-Zionist, said, we don't need Israel's permission. The U.S. stopped the killing in Yemen. The U.S. sent its B-52 bombers home to San Diego. All this without notice to Netanyahu.
This is all extremely promising. I would add one more huge item, and that is President Trump's very smart approach to ending the war in Ukraine as well, over the objections of the neocons in Washington and the traditional hardliners and those who would be saying you've got to back Netanyahu no matter what. President Trump has demonstrated he wants peace. He wants the wars to end. When it came to the case of Ukraine, he heard accurately. For the war to end, NATO expansion needs to be stopped. He said that to the Russian side. Now there's going to be negotiations. between Russia and Ukraine. Later this week, the President Trump may actually attend if the news reports are accurate. In the case of the Middle East, if the president hears and understands very clearly, there cannot be peace, there cannot be normalization between Saudi Arabia or the other Gulf countries and Israel, except if there is a state of Palestine on the 4th of June, 1967 borders, that is the internationally legal borders. Then if he hears that and responds accurately to it, then all of the items that you mentioned of showing the independence, putting American strategic interests above what he's hearing from Netanyahu, would come to fruition. The president could actually bring peace to the Middle East for the first time, really in a century, by the way. He can do that if he says, yes, I see the reality. There must be a state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel on the internationally recognized borders. The United States will lift the veto that Biden used in the UN Security Council to block Palestine's membership in the UN. The U.S. will accept Palestine as a UN member state. All UN member states come in on the condition that they are peace-seeking states, that Palestine would enter as the 194th UN member state. This could be done within days, basically. President Trump could say this during this trip. We would see history being made. If he follows the Netanyahu line, it's not going to happen.
Well, Jeff, I hope he listens to you. Here's what he said just a few minutes ago in the Oval Office, teasing the reporters that were, I don't think he was in the Oval Office, but he was in the White House, teasing the reporters that were there. Chris, number 6.
I think you may have a good result out of the Thursday meeting in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine. And I believe the two leaders were going to be there. I was thinking about flying over. I don't know where I'm going to be on Thursday. I've got so many meetings. But I was thinking about actually flying over there. There's a possibility of it, I guess, if I think things can happen.
You know, he's just the type to do something radical like that. Now, this was just released a few minutes ago, Professor Sachs, from a closed session of the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. You're probably familiar with their committee structure. Prime Minister Netanyahu, quote, this is stated in Hebrew, but we used AI to translate it. I think we will need to wean ourselves off American military aid, closed quote. If he said that, what does that tell you, Professor Sachs?
Well, that would indicate that he recognizes that the U.S. is going to pursue a different foreign policy, not to support his wars. This would be wonderful news. It might suggest that he has the advance notice that President Trump is going to call for a state of Palestine as a UN member state. That's the breakthrough that we need above all. If it happens, and if this quote suggests that, of course, we're reading a lot into it, but if it suggests that, that is phenomenal news. It's interesting, by the way, we should understand how many foreign policy initiatives President Trump is engaged in just this moment that look positive right now. And this is astounding. First is Ukraine. I think he is maneuvering to get that war ended, and he's doing it very successfully. With the U.S.-China today, the agreement to roll back the tariffs that went to the stratosphere a few weeks ago, this is very good news. With the president intervening in the India-Pakistan battle of the last few days to bring together a ceasefire, with the president overriding Waltz, apparently, and certainly Netanyahu to say, no, we're not going to have wars with Iran. All of these are peace-seeking initiatives. It's amazing. And if it's true, President Trump will make history. It's very close. He needs to understand and really needs to see that if he says two-state solution, no nonsense, this is the real thing, all his other goals will be achievable. And that is a remarkable, remarkable fact.
But think of the ramifications of this quote, assuming that Netanyahu said it. I think we will need to wean ourselves off American military aid. Where are they going to go? Who else is going to give them what the U.S. gave them?
I'll tell you where they would have to go. They would have to go to normalcy, to diplomacy, to peace. There is no military alternative for them other than the U.S. And if President Trump finally stops the U.S. backing of these military adventures, they have no other place to go. What they will have to do is wean themselves off of a 30-year addiction to war. They have to go to real diplomacy with the Arab neighbors, real diplomacy with Palestine. But most importantly, and I think this is the key point, President Trump can bring about peace by recognizing the state of Palestine.
Right.
Because that will bring the entire Arab world, which has repeatedly said that's the precondition for normalcy. It will bring the 57 countries of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation all to say, yes, this is what we have been saying for decades. This is finally coming to reality.
Will it bring about a collapse of the Netanyahu government?
Most likely. But, you know, in this world, it's so important to understand the world cannot be organized for the survival of a particular incumbent, especially one that has made egregious errors, if you want to be, if you want to be
charitable,
I don't know, very charitable about it, or egregious crimes, if you want to take a different approach. The world cannot be organized for the sake of a few individuals. It can't be organized for the sake of Netanyahu. It can't be organized for the sake of Zelensky. Yes, it should be organized for the sake of the Ukrainian people, for the sake of the people of Israel, for the sake of the people of Palestine, but not for a particular government. And if the government is extreme, if the government is pursuing an agenda of war when war absolutely makes no sense for their population, nor for the United States, the U.S. role is to say, we pursue peace. The politics is a different business, not the U.S. business. That will be determined by the people of Ukraine or by the people of Israel. But right. It is the business of the United States to pursue the U.S. interest, and the U.S. interest in Ukraine is peace, and the U.S. interest in the Middle East is peace. And that is within reach of the U.S. itself.
Let's not sugarcoat it. Professor Jeffrey Sachs is absolutely right here, and the truth stings like a drone strike on hypocrisy. With his war crime mentality, Netanyahu has run out of excuses, out of sympathy, and now maybe even out of Trump. Sachs is spelling out what every sane observer already knows. Peace doesn't come from bulldozing neighborhoods and bombing children. It comes from borders, dignity, and diplomacy. And if Trump, of all people, finally sees through Netanyahu's fear-mongering circus act, then maybe, just maybe, we're on the brink of something historic. So while Bibi sulks about losing his favorite war buddy, Sachs is out here writing blueprint for actual peace. Pay attention, because history is watching, and so are we. Drop a comment. Has Trump finally grown a conscience, or is this just another deal with devilish optics? And don't forget to like and share, y'all. Catch you in the next one.